And welcome to a special edition Biddle Europe for Saturday, February 8th, 2020. How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
Awesome.
Doing great, thank you.
We are officially open for business. What do you think? All right,
Brilliant.
let's let Eric Adams in here because he's going to want to be in here. So for Biddle this week, we have so much going on for this week that I'm trying to keep it all together. If you're around for the regular show of Biddle at 8 p.m., at the 9 o'clock hour, at the 8, obviously the first hour, we always talk about our distro challenge, which is Solus 4.1. In the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to be joined by Cassidy James from Elementary, and he's going to talk to us about the new design of the App Center, or the back end of the App Center, design of the back of the App Center, I should say, with their new Indiegogo fund. And he's going to talk about that. Let's see. Hopefully, in the next hour, we're going to be joined by Rick Timmons, who is the community manager for Kubuntu. And he's going to give us the lowdown of his take on the Kubuntu Focus and a whole list of other stuff. So just to let you know what's going on. All right. So the first part of the show is usually about the distro challenge. So Biddle Europe is usually a little bit different, where we talk about everything. But if somebody does want to put their 2 cents in about Solus, you're more than welcome to do that right now.
Well, I can say a little bit. As you know from last week, the intention was to try and sort out the Flatpak thing and get Zoom installed. I decided to go one further than that and put Solus Budgie on the main machine, which I did. Worked a hell of a lot better for me than the plasma version. I had one problem. I could not get the scanner to work. The printer would work. And I had a fix for problems with the scanner on other distros, which I thought might work. And it sort of did. It started to scan and then stopped and said it couldn't do it anymore. I spent hours trying to work out how to get around that, and I couldn't. So I got fed up with it, basically, and decided not to bother with the Flatpak thing and just nuked it. But it did run perfectly. If I could have got the scanner to work and then managed to get the Flatpak for Zoom in it, I would have probably have still been on it now. That was the plan. But having said that, I'd had sound issues with Pop OS and 1 or 2 other distros. So
no, you're not.
I did.
Are you really?
And I've switched and gone back to Manjaro, and I'm running Manjaro KDE, and touch wood. Everything seems to be working. I did have the USB headset plugged into an adapter, a USB hub. And I wonder whether that was affecting the sound, because every now and again I'd go on to YouTube, I'd start listening to something, and all of a sudden the sound full volume, even though it was still set at 25 or 30. And I could not work out why it keeps doing it. Maybe that was doing it. I haven't had it since I switched. So maybe it wasn't Pop OS. Maybe I'll end up going back to Pop OS. But that's where I am.
It can't be Pop OS. I'm just saying. It just can't be, Tony.
Well, your computer's different to everybody else's, Rocco. It has problems that nobody else has. So maybe this is true. One problem you don't have that we have, or I have.
Well, it's very shocking to see that you switched distros, Tony. I'm very shocked.
I loved Pop OS. I was on it for over a month. It's the longest I've ever been on anything in the last 2 or 3 years. But what can I say?
You got to do what you got to do. All right. Anybody else want to jump in on Solus?
Yep, I'll give you a quickie if you like.
Do it.
So I installed the latest Solus 4.1 Mate. I'd just like to clear that up, Mate.
Mate, not Mate.
No. Mate rhymes with a latte. Forget it. We're English here. It's Mate. All right. Forget all this Mate malarkey. Installed it on the Potato, which is an AMD R2. So it's a dual core AMD Athlon with a Radeon R2 inbuilt on the laptop motherboard graphics chipset. Wouldn't work. It looked like a mosaic in a church window. It was just unusable. I was so disappointed. So installed it onto my secondary desktop tower PC. No problems at all. I think personally, Solus OS is one of the best looking Mate setups out of the box. Absolutely gorgeous. It runs super smooth. I have to be totally honest with you. I couldn't see an awful lot of difference between this and the previous iteration. I'm sure there were, perhaps maybe on the back end, maybe a kernel, knew a few bits and pieces, but it was pretty much identical to how I remember. I might be wrong on this because I've done that many distros in the past 2 weeks. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I also believe they included Eddie, the Debbie installer, or is that another distribution?
That's got to be something else, ain't?
Maybe that was another distribution then, but it was. I thought that was very cool. But other than that, Solus, yeah, fine. It ran all right. Usual issues with it. Don't think it's for everybody. I think it looks gorgeous. For me, in English, bit of a Mug's Eiffel. It's a bit of a Turkish delight. It's full of Eastern promise, looks gorgeous, but it always seems to fall short on various different areas. Zoom being a typical example. And if you can't get everything you want on the system working, then what's the point of it?
Well, that is a big question, dude, because and that's always been the question about Solus is, the software. And, Flatpaks and snaps have helped that, but that's always been, every time you talk to somebody, they love it, except for when it comes to the software. It's always been there.
Yeah, and just to, butt in there, Rocco, thank you, Ferren. It was Pop OS that came with Eddie out of the box, which of course is from Elementary OS as opposed to GW.
That's why
it
wasn't Pop OS, Tony. All right. Anybody else want to do Solus?
Jason? I have something else to say.
Do it.
All righty then. Don't have to push me. All right. I've been using it almost 100% this last week. I haven't even loaded Salient. I actually removed Salient of all things recently. But there are some things that I missed that I had on the arts side, which was the AUR. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to stick around very long without having access to those apps. I might go back to Manjaro because of the fact that that's been the one distro that I constantly always went back to after a honeymoon period had gone over. But it's good. It's a good distro. I just don't know if it's for me though.
Well, that's something that everybody's got to decide for themselves, man.
Yes, I'm distro hopper.
Yeah. No, okay, and that's kind of like a problem, and I'm guilty of it. Like, do you think that because we distro hop, we kind of don't stick with distros like we should? Like, if there wasn't so much choice, wouldn't Solus be a good choice as a distro?
Good chance.
But we have all of these distros out here, all of these different things, and it's like, when we don't like something on a distro, we don't always try to work through it. We just switch. So
I'm wondering if Michael Tunnell or Noah will make a custom URL for distro hopping.
I actually think the truth is in reverse, Rocco.
What's that?
I actually think it's not because there's so many distros, we don't stick with the distro and try and work it through. I think it's because there's so many awesome distros and you're spoiled that when a distro doesn't quite come up to the mark, it sticks out like a sore thumb.
That's a good point, EB. We are at a great place right now in distros in general in Linux because most of them, not every single one, but most of them all just work and do so well at it that you're right, that when something falls short, it just stick out.
Not just that, but I think that there's an expectation now that there's a level of polish and also like tools and things like that. Like Phillips here, I mean, Manjaro is a good example of, you know, it's Arch, but it's Arch with all of the things that you would normally have to do done for you. Theming, you know, tools, just better package manager. And I think all distros are sort of feeling the pressure of, you know, well, this one added it, and now there's this nice layout switcher, right? I can switch my desktop view, or now
Yep.
there's this, you know, new feature that is not, it becomes like EB says, glaringly obvious when it's missing from another distro.
I think that's a great point, Eric. And I've had an absolute Western supermare this week because, you know, I'm the world's biggest peppermint fanboy. And of course, with what happened in the peppermint situation, I thought, okay, whether you like it or not, I need a exit strategy. So should peppermint, for whatever reason, not continue, I need to have something I can switch to immediately. So I thought, I sat there for a whole day while I was at work, chewing it over. I decided I didn't want to go to somebody else's distro. So anyway, cut a long story short, I did my own vanilla build of Debian from the ground up. Fell in love with it. Fantastic. Only got on it what I wanted. It was quick, it was snappy, fast, rock solid. Older packages, because I went for Debian 10 Buster. That's fine, I can live with that. However, I then made the huge mistake, because I'm waiting for a new NVMe drive to arrive, of thinking, well, I've got a bit of time. Do you know what? I've got my Pep, I've got my Debian. I'll just stick MX Linux on here, just because. Oh my God, talk about conflicts of interest. It's unbelievable. Because on the one hand, you think, well, I've got a lovely vanilla Debian here, which is super sleek, slim, just what I want. Then you put something like MX Linux on there, and you are just absolutely hugged and cuddled with all these tools and utilities and everything done out of the box. And you think to yourself, wow, now what? You know, you just absolutely spoiled at the minute with desktop Linux distros. I actually think you're struggling to get a pig in a poke. You really, really are.
Well, that is a topic that was actually in the Biddle discourse. If your distro went away, what would you choose? And man, that is a hard thing to think about. And to, you know, we try so many, and it's like to sit, I've been on Pop OS since April of last year. So if that went away tomorrow, what would I choose to go on the machine? I don't know what I would choose, to be honest with you. I don't have an exit plan for that. I don't know if you guys do.
And it's a real problem, Rocco, because if you are so happy with Pop OS, is anything else really going to cut it and come up to the mark? This is the problem. And then you just fall straight back into that age-old disease of, you know, serial hepatitis, because you just can't scratch that itch. It's bizarre.
But does it?
Go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to say, I mean, does everybody have a favorite at this point? I mean, Bob, you're saying, or EB, you're saying, you know, you peppermint, and I personally always fall back to Kubuntu.
Yep.
You know, and so I will try these other distros and I'll actually use them. But at the end of the day, I know that I'm going to be back on Kubuntu at some point, right? And so if I'm in there and I find a problem, I'll absolutely report it. I'll tell Rick, or somebody's going to hear about it, because that's the distro that I'm using. That's the one I want to make sure is always working well.
Well, that would be the case, Eric. What if Kubuntu went away? What would you go to?
I would probably run it on Arch, you know, Plasma on Arch.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, believe it or not. I mean, and so Manjaro has a very good Arch, or has a very good Plasma release. Very beautiful theming and just good tools, and it works really well. But I'm just so used to Kubuntu at this point, because I've been using it for so long, that's what I call home, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm going to give an opposite. I don't distro hop. I have a test machine and I have test distros. I have a bunch of VMs, but I stick basically on one operating system or one distro with various numbers of that operating system running at one time. One of the things we're going to talk about later, or I guess we're going to have the elementary team on, is one of the big changes that we're seeing is for a long time, I have to use Debian, let's say, to get packages, or I have to use Arch to get packages. So with snaps and flat packs, that's really not an issue anymore. And it's almost, you just want that solid foundation distro that does what you want, because applications are now much more available to anyone. And so this Snap store is really doing a lot of stuff. And with the recent announcement with Elementary, it looks like they're going to make all of the things that they are doing in their app center available as a flat pack. So it doesn't really matter now, or will not matter if you're using Elementary or not. And
But I
that
think-
really, I'm
So
sorry, go ahead.
I find that a bit bizarre. Why on earth would they make everything available as a flat pack when they're an Ubuntu-based distro? Why on earth would they not just Snap?
Well, there's a couple reasons that they'll probably end up bringing up, and some of that is security. So there's confinement around the flat packs, privacy, so that it can't have access to most of your system, and
Snaps do the
things
same
like that.
Rocco.
What's that?
Snaps do the same thing with the security and confinement. It's just a
Right,
different
but he was talking
implementation.
about dev files and stuff, like the regular Ubuntu, the regular Ubuntu repositories.
I thought EB said
No.
Snap.
I just find it bizarre that Elementary OS that's built and based off of Ubuntu would go to flat packs. Why would they not go to Snap when Snap is the native Ubuntu
I got you.
format? Do you know what I mean?
There is a question that some people do not like snaps for various reasons. There are integration issues with some DEs and snaps that's being worked on, and there's no better way to say it than there are some people that do not like Canonical. Even though they use Canonical's products and their build systems, they have issues with Canonical running Snap. And you can argue it either way or not, but that seems to be a fact. So flat packs are totally decentralized.
There's more flat packs available too, though, aren't there, than there are snaps right now?
I don't think that's an honest answer, because there are snaps being made all the time. I don't know how you would actually, because you can make your own snaps and never publish them to the store.
I mean, the other thing is don't forget that Snap's flat packs and all the rest of it isn't the holy grail. There are certain things that you can't snap and flat pack, i.e. Lutris.
Well, there are a lot of things, because basically snaps and flat packs are just packaging systems. And if you're going into something like Ubuntu Core, where it's all based on snaps, and the same way if you go into Fedora Silverblue, where most of it is based on flat packs, it's just a packaging system. People are going to choose which one best fits their profile. But getting away from the weeds, if you look at it, that makes packages available to everyone, whether I'm running MX, Manjaro, Pop OS, or almost anything that's running System D, Red Hat. I could put a Rail system up, and there's very limited package availability there if I'm running a workstation. But if I throw a flat pack of something on, I can get modern software. So it becomes more what my base is. Do I want my base to be Pop OS, let's say, because I like that, or I like what KDE and Kubuntu are doing. So it's a great time, because I can take what I want as my base and almost not worry about having software availability anymore.
But Bill, to your point too, that's the reason why I think you hear a lot of the anti-snap, anti-flat pack arguments is exactly what you just said. Is I could put a snap together and put it up in the store, and the argument, and I know what you're going to say, but when I finish with this, but because they're always worried about, well, you don't know who's really maintaining it and what they're putting in there and that kind of thing. And from a security standpoint, and that was always the argument. I think that's changing now, but I think that's why there's still a lot of concern or fear over those, which I use flat packs all the time. I do have some snaps in here. I just noticed that for me, there's more flat packs available for what I want to use than there are snaps. Although, like you said, I mean, it's not something I can't do. And I think that's the beauty of Linux here, is the fact that you can do these sorts of things if you want to. You're talking about the discussion on having too many choices versus not enough. In one breath, I could see both sides of this. In one breath, it would be nice to have not just one, but maybe 2 or 3 distros out there that's all it's focused on, because then the problems might tend to be taken care of more readily or more consistently or whatever you want to say for an argument. But then the other side of the coin is if you get one of those three that doesn't work on a machine you want to have it on, you don't have any other choices. We're having the versatility of all these distros gives you that benefit. It's kind of funny because in one breath we always wanted to get away from Windows because of the proprietary. You're locked down, you don't have any choices. Mac's the same way. And here it's almost like, I don't want to call it complaining, but it's always this concern about why do we have so many choices? I'd rather have more choices than being locked down to a proprietary or one platform.
Well, there's downsides to having too much choice. There is, and there always will be, but it's not something that you want to change. You don't want to not have that choice. You just realize and live with some things that are going to be, maybe not the best scenario, and that one of those biggest reasons is having a standardized Linux distro to give to new users. To say the overall Linux community suggests you use this distro. And whether we want that or not, I don't necessarily know if I want that or not. It would help adoption of Linux. It would help people maybe understand Linux more who don't understand Linux, but it would that also comes with drawbacks too. So it's like, that's the.
But think about something, Rocco. Don't we to some extent, at some basis, have a standardized Linux in some sense when you're looking at the machines that are being put out there, whether it's proprietary or not, like System 76 has Ubuntu or Pop! OS version, but then you have Dell putting it out there, you have Lenovo that's starting to really come about, and you have some of these other machines are put out, and what do they put on it as the standard is vanilla Ubuntu.
Not necessarily, Joe. I disagree that we have a standard already, or that most people will put on Ubuntu, because there's many, Manjaro goes on PCs. Depending on where you get this from, you got. This was actually going to be a topic I was going to bring up about laptops. Like, you got so many companies from System 76 to Entroware to Juno to Tuxedo. All of these companies putting out laptops and hardware with Linux on them, and they all have a different, or they all would install a different OS for you. So if you wanted this distribution, they might install this one, or they may have a choice of distribution. There really isn't a standard to say to somebody new, you want a laptop, you want this.
Well, right, but that's what I'm saying, kind of a gray thing. But the typical choices you see out of the gate are either going to be Ubuntu, or in some cases, like if you're looking at Puget Systems, they might have Mint or something like that for the two choices initially. Now, whether they'll put another distro on there if you want it, I'm sure that you could ask.
Go ahead.
Yeah, for most new users, though, it is going to be. That's why they do that. Standard quote unquote of Ubuntu-based distros, right, is because for new users, that's 99.9% of the way they go, because it's more of a, it's easier to the software centers develop this, that, and the other thing, whatever the case may be, and they put it on there because it is easier for newer users to pick up than something like a Arch-based one or something like that. Like, this is coming from a fairly new user myself. One of the first distros I went to, I started off with Linux MX, and then I ended up going to Linux Mint, because when you search the web for what is good for a new user, most people will say Linux, something like Ubuntu or Linux Mint. So that is the main distro I use still, is Linux Mint. So a lot of these laptop computer companies that are going to start using Linux as an OS, as an option, are probably going to see the main option they're going to give you when they put it in the description is probably going to be Ubuntu or Ubuntu base.
Well, I'm going to say something about that. So you have Phil's on here right now, and they have and are working with a company to offer Manjaro-based systems. And later today, I hope we're going to have someone on that's got obviously it is Ubuntu-based, but Kubuntu-based system, the Kubuntu Focus. So it's not there. Everybody's out there. Mint has Mint has the Mint box that you can buy pre-installed. So there are a lot of companies that are offering not just Ubuntu, but everything from Manjaro, Kubuntu. You have Ubuntu Mate is an option on Entroware.
Yep.
So
Yes,
there
but
is
it's
a
not
lot.
just hardware, Bill. I mean, it's just when I talk about standardization of Linux or a standard distro, it's not just for hardware too. It is for, okay, think in your mind when somebody you don't know comes up to you and says, I run Linux. What's your first thought?
Mine
Yeah.
is that they're running a server.
No, I mean, like, what's your first question to them? If they say, hey, I run Linux, what's your first question to them?
Probably what distro they're running.
What distro you're running? Which one? Because there is, even though Ubuntu is popular and is like given to or suggested for new people, and Linux Mint is, I mean, when I did that Linux Spotlight episode with Wendy, she said the same thing, that, Linux Mint comes up all the time when you're searching for what distro is for a new user, it comes up all the time. So when I talk about standards, I'm also putting that into the mix. It's hardware, it's what people think of when they think of Linux, it's what you would suggest to somebody. It's a whole bunch of different pieces that come together, and I don't think that we have a standard. I don't even know if we should have a standard.
I mean, the two standards we really have are the kernel, and right now, based on what has happened that Red Hat wanted, systemd. Those are the two standards. You have MX Linux, offers non-systemd and systemd, and you had Devuan split off from Debian. Is it Devuan?
Dev1.
A non-systemd, but if you look, systemd and the kernel are the two basic standards for most Linux users, because that's gonna fall Arch, Debian, Ubuntu, all those bases, Red Hat, Fedora. So
I would ask Phil about a standard in Linux, but he would probably suggest Manjaro be the standard.
Are you saying he's biased?
What do you think, Phil? Do we need a standard distro or a standardization in Linux? Okay. We'll let him work out his mic.
Yeah.
Robin made it, and Linux Paul made it too. Linux Paul, welcome.
Welcome, Paul.
Good evening.
It is about time you got on here. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it is. I finally figured out which end of the microphone to talk into, so...
Linux Paul, do forgive me, dude. You need to drop the M off the end. It looks like Linux Plum. Just saying, dude. Just saying.
Don't go there.
No, to be honest with you, like I told you, I don't know how many people have done that. I wouldn't know anybody that did that before, but some people have. Paul, did you get to try Solus at all?
I use Solus. It's my daily driver.
Imagine that.
Yeah, somebody's got to.
Very funny.
So tell us about the joys of Solus, Paul.
Well, I started using it 2-3 years ago now. I can't even remember why I started using it, but I was using Ubuntu for a good number of years, and I just kind of fancied a change. And then I started doing some distro hopping and settled on Solus.
And what made you stop distro hopping?
I think I like the way Solus was set up out of the box. It has some fantastic defaults.
Yep.
And I'm a bit of a gamer as well, so I found that it offered me just one of the best gaming experiences for getting games running. It and Pop OS are the two best for me.
Agreed. Well, it's good to have you here, man.
It's good to be here.
All right, Robin, you got your mic working or what, brother? We'll check back with Robin. Anyway, I'm sorry for derailing that conversation about the whole standardization and everything. But, you said, EB, why would they pick, why would Elementary go with, flat
pack
packs
as
over
opposed to
snaps.
snaps. Yeah, yeah.
And everybody, it seems like everybody has that. Nobody will. Well, I won't say nobody, because actually, there are some distros that you can run both on or use both on. But everybody seems to fall into one camp or another, and I'm not exactly sure why. Because I like the idea of having both, and I think that that's what you're coming to see now. And going back to that point of earlier, where when you see something that doesn't match up with, when you see a distro that doesn't have something, it sticks out. I would like to see snaps and flat packs available on every single distro. And when they're not, it's something that, you might say, hey.
Yeah, I think the problem is, Rocco, I think that Linux on the desktop has come so far in the last 18 months. It's staggering, right?
Yep.
However, the standard comment you hear about most people who love a distro is, why do you love it? Because it just works. It's great. Everything just works. Don't forget, that's the standard that Windows has set. Right? So it's no good spending half a day installing a Linux distro, getting everything themed, beautifully looking, all your conkeys, your icons, looks fantastic. And you come to download and run World of Tanks or World of Warships or whatever, and it don't work. So that's not acceptable. Now, I would like you all, if you have the opportunity on the American bid later on, to absolutely chastise Running with the Dolphin, because to produce a Linux distribution where everything just works, by and large, is unacceptable. So I would like the MX Mepis team to actually throw a few clangers in there, because it's out of order. You know what I'm saying? It's just bang out of order.
Well, going to your point, EB, I was listening to Jason Evangelo's podcast, Linux for Everyone, and he had his wife, Lana, on there, and she gave her experience with Ubuntu when she came back to it. And, she ended up installing it, and she remembers all these things about it, and this seems like it's going to be a great experience. And then, she wanted to play World of Warcraft and through Lutris. She wanted to play World of Warcraft, basically. So they tried Lutris, and what the bottom line is, they had to jump through all of these hoops. And her point was, I don't want to have to jump through all of them. I don't want to have to go do this and set this up and do this and set it up. I want it to just work.
Yeah, absolutely spot on, Rocco. And this is what an awful lot of people are getting carried away with and forgetting in the Linux world. Yes, Linux is fantastic, but at this moment in time, Linux is still not a straight replacement for Windows. It's not Linux's fault, but that's just the way it is. There's still a ton of stuff that's not available. And you can say, you don't need to use Adobe Photoshop, you can use GIMP. Listen, if somebody's used Adobe Photoshop for 10 years and they use it at work, they're not going to suddenly get rid of 10 years worth of knowledge just to say, hey, I'm free and open source, I'll run GIMP. It's never going to happen. We've got to get our heads around this.
It can happen, but it's usually the exception when it happens.
Yeah, because don't forget, Rocco, people are like water, right? They want the easiest path.
Steve, I'm gonna give you a rebuttal to what you just said, and it's funny. It's actually a funny rebuttal, and this happened just last night because I made mention last week that I finally have my wife on Linux. Finally, her Windows 7 obviously was coming to an end, so I had to update all her machines. I've had that laptop sitting there for 2 years. I finally put Mint on it, left it dual boot because if she needed to get into Windows, which I'm hoping she did.
Wait, before you go any further, Joe, why wasn't the option to update to Windows 10?
Why wasn't what?
Like, why wasn't that option on the table to upgrade to Windows 10?
Well, and that's where I did. I put Windows 10. There's a lot of things I don't like about Windows 10. First of all, I don't trust it. Not just for data mining, but because of the stability issues it's having lately. You talk about instability. I think it's worse than Linux. You don't know if something's going to break. It's like every week there's something pretty catastrophic with it happening. They fix it, but it's still the point that it happens. And when you're running a business, she's a top producing realtor in our area. She can't have any downtime like that. So even though that had Windows 10 on the laptop, I put a separate drive in it and I put Mint on it. what the point I was starting to make to EB here, which was funny, is last night I asked her, I said, so how do you like your new computer? She goes, oh, it's okay. She goes, I'm just getting used to it because it's a change, right? It's from Windows 7 to this. I said, well, how do you like that in comparison to your machine at work? I said, your Windows. She goes, well, what do I have over there? I said, you got Windows 10. She goes, well, what's the difference? And I looked at her, I said, you serious? I said, looks, how it performs. I said, Windows, I said, Linux right now, your Mint is faster. And I'm going through all these things. She literally was serious. She said she didn't know the difference between that. She was running Windows 10 on her desktop right now because I haven't put Mint on it yet. I wanted to make sure she liked this. And Mint on the laptop, because they do have similarities, but yet she didn't know she was running two different operating systems.
I think a
To
computer.
me, I thought, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because in one breath, it keeps her complaining down. But the bad thing is not recognizing that it's not the same. But I thought that was pretty interesting response. It was, I bust out laughing. I thought, oh my God.
It's a great shout though, Joe, because what you've got to understand is there's billions of people out there that, like your wife, who don't even care. They don't care. If you go out and buy a brand new car today, and the salesman then says to you, oh, by the way, for another $100, you can have this hammer and this spanner, and for another $50, you can have this repair manual. And actually, on a Sunday afternoon, you can spend 8 hours of your life servicing your vehicle yourself. How cool is that? People turn and say, excuse me, I can run it into the local garage, and for 30 quid, it's done. And it's really... And this is because it's a 24/7 on-demand society. Other than enthusiasts, hobbyists, tinkerers, whatever you want to call us, people are just not interested. They haven't got time.
Well, to Rocco's question, too, to finish, one other point is this is still my Windows 7 machine. This is the one I've always pointed out. I always use it for my accounting. But the new machine I built had to have Windows 10 on it. The other thing I don't like about it is this machine stays offline, as will the Windows 10 machine. But I am not afraid once in a while to boot this up if I have to go into like my PayPal account or my eBay store. Those are the two targeted places I'll go. I'm on there for a few minutes. I get what I need, and boom, I come off. So if I log on to the internet, I'm not afraid of it. With Windows, the minute you log on, what happens? It starts running updates in the background. Even if you try to defer them, eventually it's going to do that. So I don't have a choice with that, but simply to keep it offline. That's why I will finally use this monitor the way it was intended and run two machines on one monitor so I can look at the information side by side, one on Linux, one on Windows. Is it convenient? Not necessarily, because I want to cut and paste, but there's a way around that too. It's all these extra hoops to have to go through. And honestly, if push came to shove where she had to have a particular software program that Linux just simply didn't have, but it was available on Mac or Windows, I would put her on a Mac. I'd get her used to a Mac before that. Not that they're necessarily any better, but at least you don't have to worry about them running updates. They're going to, break your system in the middle of something or, whatever, the invasiveness. So that's to your point too, Rocco.
Yep.
May I say something? Just the updates.
You may.
I don't understand what people are talking about with updates. I administer multiple machines with Windows 10. I never got any complaints about updates happening in the middle of something they work. And I, for example, run a machine with Windows Insider, so the testing branch of Windows 10. I don't get updates in the middle of when I work on Windows. I will get updates during the night, but I switch on the particular days. I switch to Windows during the night, so automatically updates. But I will never get updates automatically during when I work, because Windows is smart enough to detect the time when you are supposed to work. And
Big Pod, just check out YouTube or Twitch and see the amount of live streamers that are in the middle of a gaming live stream. Go, what?
If it doesn't work, you can set it yourself.
What's going on? And the stream shuts down, and the Windows 10 updated, rebooted the machine in the middle of a live stream.
That's because they didn't configure they didn't configure the time frame of when all that stuff's configurable. As far as Joe, you're talking about the I have Windows updates completely shut off on my computer. They never run unless I do it manually, but I had to go into the MS config. I had to go into the services and actually go in there and turn it off. Like, you can go into the settings and turn it off, but that doesn't actually turn it off. That just says, okay, purpose, make the user feel comfortable that it's turned off. Now you have to go into the registry, not the registry, but the services config files and actually do it in the background.
Jason, you're talking about people who struggle to find the Windows key on a keyboard here, dude. They're
Right,
not
and see,
going to go into no registry.
Well, I'm sorry.
Talk about all this work. That's a lot of extra work to go to shut it off. Now, here's the other thing. You shut off those updates, and what happens? Now you're not getting security patches either. So now you go to do security patch updates. If Windows decides they're going to put a big update out, guess what happens? They turn all that stuff back on. It's this never-ending battle. And
not in the services. Not when you turn it off in the services.
Yeah.
Well, let's
now turn it back on if you turn it off in the settings. But if you do it in the actual background, like I know you guys are probably like English Bob said, you know, I do the same. I work in IT, so obviously I know how to do this stuff. You know, I've been doing it for 20 plus years, and it's, you know, if you go into the system itself and do it, then anything's configurable. Now, yes, it's not as easy as doing it on something like Linux or whatever, Mac OS or anything like that, because Windows is, they want that stuff turned on for obvious reasons. They like to, you know, be in control and do the little telemetry things, yada yada yada. But you can turn all that stuff off. You just have to, you know, learn how to do it, and if you trust yourself to do it.
That's right. But why should you have to? That's the point.
It's because it's Microsoft. That's the only answer I have.
The average user is not going to do that. And like I was going to say, the Big Pot's point, if you're running Windows Home, they don't have some of the features to even do.
Most of the features are there still.
So it's going to be different what it is. Like I could defer updates for, what is it, 60 or 90, whatever it is, 60 days or something like that?
On Home, I can do it for 15 days. Whereas on Pro, I can do it for, I believe, 30 or 60 days. But on the point of English Bob, that normal people won't disable updates. I have seen normal people's computers, total idiots, sorry for the word, when it comes to computers, 5 months of updates waiting on Windows 10 Home before the fact they enabled you to actually disable updates for 15 days. So
Big Pod, I've been to people's houses and seen Windows XP never updated ever. What's an update? And I'm like, really?
Oh,
well, my Windows beeper is going off. We're talking too much about Windows and not enough about Linux. Just saying.
Yeah.
It's like the level's gone way up here.
Oh, the wind blows. That's the sign you're missing, Rocco. As opposed to open, which you have for the US, for the UK, you should have through the window, looking out the window.
No, I mean, okay, so, you know, EB, you had mentioned about people that they don't care. We're not going to get everybody on Linux. No, that's just the way it is.
Never going to happen.
We can suggest things to people, and I don't even like the idea of pushing Linux to people, because you can't push somebody into something. You can push them into it, but you're going to regret it, and they might regret it.
And you're going to pay the price as well. You're right, Rocco. Yeah.
So, you know, when you see somebody that may be a good candidate for Linux, like they're, you know, they want to learn about stuff, and that's great. When people inquire what you're running, you know, tell them, let them know that it's running Linux. But to force it down people's throats who really don't want it or even care to know about it, they don't even care. They're not interested in it. It's kind of worthless to me.
Right. And it's not necessarily pushing. You want to just suggest. You don't push anybody to do anything they don't want to do. That's all. You could turn around and just say, hey, I run this. You know, if it's something you're interested in, let me know, kind of a thing or whatever. Just passively.
Yep.
Yeah,
Agreed.
in my opinion, the best way to advocate for Linux is just to be a happy Linux user. Just let them see you using your computer. Happy as Larry.
Yep.
And if they ask you, what are you using? You tell them.
Yep.
And you can spawn off a conversation from that.
I actually did a Linux spotlight this past week, and, you know, I'm not going to mention who it is yet, but anyway, we were talking about it, and he says, I don't go telling people about Linux. They see it on my machine, and, you know, when they ask, I tell them what it is, and I think that's pretty awesome, because I'm telling you, you're going to make more issues for yourself and for them if you try to push that. I see, Robin, you are with us now. How are you?
Evening, all. Yes, I'm good, thank you. Sorry about that. I've had troubles trying to get OpenSUSE up and working.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah. So I did have some good things to say about it this week in my testing, but come to reality getting it on bare metal and yikes. How is everybody? Okay, good?
I'm good. Well, to be honest with you, dude, last week I tried to install Solus, and I had mentioned on Biddle that I couldn't get it installed. And now this week, I didn't even have time to try to install it on the second week. So I tried so many different ways and had so many issues with it. So, yeah, I can relate.
I mean, one thing I do notice is that when I try out these, and I heard you earlier on talking about us distro hoppers not sticking with stuff for quite some time and always hopping to something different. I think probably at the moment, the one thing that I really, really do and are keen to actually get a really good distro to stick with me that runs Plasma. So I heard a lot of talk about open source, and I've heard Nate obviously talk a lot about it, and he's an open source guy. I thought I'd give it a try to see what's different about it, and try and see what we could do with the EST software center, for example. Oh my goodness, what troublesome I've had with that Yast. And Zipper, well, you use Zipper and it's like, so it definitely lives up to its name. But if you try and install anything using the Yast software center, oh goodness me, I tell you what. So for me, and this is definitely some advice just from me personally. If you're looking to go open source, make sure you know what you're doing first, because it's definitely not the best. But one thing I will say is that in my trials with Solus, I had trouble with installing 4.1 straight out of the box. I had to put 4 on there first and then go through the upgrade process. And the upgrade process was great. Took about 10 minutes. A few gigs worth of updates coming through the line. No problems at all. Just straight out of the box, it works. My only problem is I can't have it as a daily driver because I can't run Teams.
Well, I had mentioned earlier about Solus not having, the software selection, or I was actually commenting on EB's comment about that. And Serge made sure to correct me that, you can do Solus, you can do Flatpak, snaps, app images, and all kinds of other dev files and stuff like that. So the whole point was that that has always been the stigma about Solus, that the software is not there. And sometimes you can get the snap or Flatpak you want, and sometimes it's not so simple or it doesn't work properly. So I think that is also another thing to look at when you're looking at software relying on snaps or Flatpaks, because there may be issues with certain ones. The Flatpak of this program might have an issue, or the snap of this program might have an issue that you can't work around. So it's not just as simple as saying, well, snaps are enabled or snaps are available on there or Flatpaks are available on there, so it's all hunky-dory and everything's good. So
I would just like to say, Rocco, very quickly, I don't know if anybody else has noticed, fastest install of any distro ever, Solus. My God, was that brisk. Awesome.
Yep. You're not the first person to say that, EB.
It's always been. That's the one thing about it. It's always been lightning fast.
I have to agree that if you want a Linux distro installed very, very quickly, say for example you got a radio show to get up and running in 10 minutes, you can do it. You can do it. It's so fast.
Yeah,
I love the mic, dude. I love the mic.
It's always been
me?
fast. It's
Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
And now with the new compression system, it's even faster.
Well, I wish I could try it out and let you know, but I can't. So, hey, we have Mr. Tibbetts in the house. If you got your mic.
Yeah, hi. Yes,
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, not bad.
I'm so glad you made it, brother.
I apologize. The last 2 times it didn't work out, did it? I'm actually out on location at the moment doing something, but so I'm connected via mobile. So if it gets a bit wobbly, I apologize for that. But hopefully it'll be okay.
No worries, and we're glad to have you. So, you have a laptop that you're going to talk about, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'm been very, very fortunate that we were approached. So Kubuntu, the Kubuntu community, were approached by Mindshare Management from the US, and they wanted to look at doing an OEM hardware package utilizing Kubuntu, which I was super excited about. You can imagine, as were the rest of the community guys as well, because it's like just wonderful to do that. So I really wanted to grab that opportunity and to work with the team. So, and as a Kubuntu community manager and a counselor, this was a really good opportunity to sort of roll my sleeves up and really work with these guys. So initially, I thought to myself, forgive me, I wonder whether this will really come true. And but the guys at Mindshare seemed super committed to doing this and making this happen. They've done a huge amount of work already on the whole product offering that they wanted to put together. They sent us their GitHub repo with all of their instructions, with additional changes and alterations and configurations to the standard Kubuntu distro for the package that they wanted to offer. So it was then a case of just orchestrating some work with Kubuntu and Canonical to get some trademarks in place and do all of that kind of work, which I'd worked with them to get that done. So, and they'd said to me, well, we'll send you a review laptop and we'd like you to keep it for a few months and use it as your day-to-day daily driver for work and play and all of this kind of stuff. Well, I couldn't believe it. It was like,
well, you obviously said no, right? There's no way I could do
yeah,
that.
right. I said, yeah, of course I did. Yeah. Well, I didn't say anything really. I just thought, oh, well, I'll believe it when I see it. And then about 2 days before Christmas, this box arrived. And I thought, I couldn't believe it. I just thought, wow, they've shipped this thing from the States with all of their additions and extensions that they've added to the Kubuntu distribution. And here is this laptop with a Kubuntu emblem, an aluminium Kubuntu emblem emblazoned on it. It's got its own Kubuntu key on the keyboard. It was like really quite something. So I thought, I'm going to have to do something crazy. So I did this crazy YouTube video with me with a Christmas hat on, doing an unboxing thing. Just, because you just like, well, because you want to help guys like that, don't you? When they're reaching out to the community and you've got guys that are willing to put time, blood, sweat and tears and money on the table to try to, drive an OEM hardware product, you've got to support that, Rocco,
Yep, that's absolutely great point. It doesn't come along every day, and when it does happen, man, you gotta take time and support that. Yep, agreed. So, what are the major differences between Kubuntu that's on the Focus and regular Kubuntu?
Well, I think so. Broadly speaking, they're very superficial changes, I would say, but they do take you from a distribution to a product. So you imagine that you've got your PC and you're going to get Kubuntu, download it and install it, and then you've got a very nice, attractive, well-balanced distro that gives you the freedom to go and install and configure and do whatever you want to do. So, and Kubuntu as a distribution is excellent at doing that. But if you want to bring a product to market, then you need to understand what is the market sector that you're chasing. So what Mindshare Management identified was that they were seeing that actually, as we've moved from client server to cloud infrastructure, even things like the MacBook Pro, which is very expensive, starts to struggle when you start thinking about how do I develop or build like if I'm a creative, intelligent person, so if I'm doing, maybe I'm making video, maybe I'm developing websites, maybe I'm building code, maybe I'm working on cloud infrastructure. If I've got to interface with AWS and Google or Azure, how do I do that from a MacBook Pro? Actually, life starts to get challenging once you start to go off the device and into the world. So the idea was Linux and Unix, but predominantly Linux, offers this wonderful platform that is cloud native right out of the box. So how do you then build a product that will compete with a MacBook Pro or the latest Windows PC offerings, but give developers and creative types the ease of use that they're looking for? How do you simplify that? So that's what they've set about doing. So they've added things like the Jetbrains Toolbox right out the box. So anything you want to install, if you're developing in C#, if you're developing Java, Go, which is my favorite thing, then or C++, then the Jetbrains Toolbox is right there. One click, and you've got the IDE and all of the development infrastructure and environment that you need. If you want to work with AWS, then the tools are there to do that. Maybe you're exploring Python, Jupyter Notebooks. You want to do stuff with machine learning and AI, then all the TensorFlow stuff is already there, installed, along with Jupyter, along with Python 3. So they've paid a lot of attention to making sure that all of those tools are there. And then also they've been working on developing workflows. So one of the reasons why I'm on location this weekend, actually, which has made this a bit more challenging, was that they've got a workflow for photography. Now, I'm rubbish at photography. I've never done photography before in my life. But this week, I got a camera. I borrowed my daughter's camera, and I thought, right, I'm going to test out this workflow for photography. So I plugged my daughter's camera into the Focus laptop. And I'm a particular fan of a photo archiving tool called Digicam, which is a KDE-based piece of software. So I plugged that in. I installed Digicam. It pulled the photos off. And then I went and looked at the workflow. And the workflow utilizes a tool called Darktable and then Inkscape or GIMP for graphics manipulation. I've never used Darktable before, so I followed the instructions, plugged the thing in, and I transformed these images, they look really rubbish to start with. They looked amazing when I was finished. I was thinking, wow, this is so great. So right now, I'm in a place called Cheddar Gorge in the UK. I'm in my motorhome at the moment, and I've been out all day with 2 cameras, taking photographs and making videos, so I can kind of pour it all through the Kubuntu Focus this week and run it all through Darktable to kind of see what it looks like. So I know I've given you a long-winded answer there, Rocco, but I wanted to carry partly some of the enthusiasm, but that's the difference between Kubuntu and the Focus laptop. The Focus is giving you a product where all the things that you expect to be optimized for the hardware are optimized for the hardware. And so it just makes utilizing it and using it as a tool so much easier.
Right. Very nice. So can we expect some more videos from you about this, like your Christmas video?
Well, yeah, I hope to. I mean, there are a few things that are going on in the background at the moment. So I used to work with a couple of the guys from the Kubuntu community, Ovidiu, Florin Bogdan, and Aaron Honeycutt, and we used to do the Kubuntu podcast. We did that for a while, and it was all good stuff, right? Which is kind of like my key phrase, oh, good stuff. And so we're going to bring that back, but it's going to be it won't be that frequent that we're doing it, and it's going to be a bit looser and a bit more unpodcasty,
right,
rather than it was before. But we are going to do that again, and we're going to do a release party for 20.04 for Kubuntu, and that's going to also include members of the K-Focus team, the Kubuntu Focus team. We're going to get some interviews with those guys and do that. That's taking place on or around about April the 25th. In a couple of weeks' time, the information will go up on kubuntu.org, and you'll be able to see it on the calendar, and there'll be news there. But it's around about April 23rd 25th, I think, is the Saturday after the Thursday. So I think we're going to do that then. Both me and Ovidiu have reached out to the KDE media team, because we talked about doing videos independently for Kubuntu, but actually we think it might be better if we spend some time working with the KDE community and just add and contribute there rather than operating outside and in isolation.
Well, so the focus. So when is this available for people?
Yeah, okay. So the Focus started shipping on the 2nd of February, 2nd or 3rd of February. Hang on, let me just have a quick look at the calendar and I'll tell you. Okay, so the first units for the Focus shipped on the 3rd of February. So they were available for pre-order from the 15th of January. So that's when the e-commerce site went live, which you can find at kfocus.org. Then so obviously some number of pre-orders came in, and obviously shipments came through, etc. And then Mindshare started shipping on the 3rd of February. And also we now have EMEA, so across Europe, those shipments are being fulfilled by Tuxedo Computers. So we got in touch with those guys there, and we have a contact there, Vincenz, who's the product manager at Tuxedo Computers. So Mike from Mindshare has worked and liaised with Tuxedo to enable both parties to be able to ship the exact same identical machine in both North America, Canada, and Europe. And then anything outside of that, so obviously, I think they've been having some global orders as well. They're being fulfilled from the US at the moment, but we're shipping now.
Very nice. Very nice. So this machine, is it specifically with a set of hardware inside of it, or is this something you can customize?
Okay, so it started out being a very high performance, quite an expensive machine, which I thought was absolutely wonderful, right? So you've got like 6 cores, 12 threads, 32 gigs of RAM, a terabyte of SSD, a GTX 2060 mobile NVIDIA graphics card with all of the GPU optimizations built into Chrome and the browser, and CUDA installed so you can utilize all of those GPU cores. I don't know whether the guys at Mindshare got nervous that in the pre-order phase, not as many orders came through as they might have liked, or it could be that more orders came through than they were expecting. But whichever way it was, they got really excited and thought, this looks like it's going to fly. Right, this looks great. So let's change some of the configurations. Let's offer people 16 gigs of RAM, 250 gigabyte SSDs, slightly lower GPUs. Let's also offer them 64 gigs of RAM, right? And lots more juice, and give them extra 2070 GTX 2070 NVIDIA cards in there. So now they've upgraded their e-commerce site, which they did around about the 25th of January, something like that. So just a few days before pre-order, they kind of extended the offering. And so now you can go on to the KFocus site and you can customize, choose the various different pieces of hardware that you want in there, and then have those shipped. And of course, you still have the option to upgrade or change the box later on and order component pieces. And one of the things, this is a little bit kind of like on the QT, on the quiet, if you like, but I was in a conversation with a product team the other day, and they were explaining to me that most of the vendors that are shipping units like this, they remove the user manual, which is a thick book that explains how you can take the machine to bits and add extra memory and add extra peripherals and configure the base motherboard, etc. Almost all of the other vendors remove that. the K-Focus team, the Kubuntu Focus team, are not going to do that. So when you get a machine shipped a Kubuntu Focus, it comes with that manual that explains how to take it to bits, how to add new components, how to put stuff in. So you've still got that full ownership over the product. So it's looking like it's going to be really flexible, Rocco.
That is awesome. I love it. You guys got any questions about the Focus?
The only question I've got around the K-Focus is I saw Michael do a demonstration on his YouTube channel when he done an unboxing, and great video, and really appreciate all that he showed off. The only question I've got is in terms of the desktop environment, because the screens that he was showing, it looks slightly different. So are we expecting a slightly different twist on the DE for this product?
No, I don't think so. My understanding of it is that, and I have to say, it did mess with me a little bit, because from my perspective, all of the plasma stuff is all on the right-hand side, with this vertical bar on the right-hand side, with where what would be traditionally the kickoff menu is in the top right-hand corner, whereas I'm used to it being in the bottom left-hand corner because of Kubuntu. But I thought, I'm not going to change that, right? I know I can configure all of that, but I'm just going to stick with that. And actually, quite quickly, after 3 or 4 days, I thought, do you know what? I really like this environment. I do like it a great deal. Now, to answer your question specifically, no, I don't believe that that there may well be customers or consumers that give Mike feedback about improvements or changes that he might want to make to the desktop. At this point in time, and I've been very connected and communicating with the team regularly each week, I've not seen very much of that at all. They've added a welcome video. They've added MIME types for the browser configurations, so that when you open the support web page, if you click on any one of the applications, it launches it straight away on the desktop. And then they have also maintained I think it's about 7 different images that give you things like keyboard shortcuts, functional shortcuts, Vim shortcuts, and a bunch of other bits and pieces. And that actually is like part of the core offering, I think, that Mike wanted to try to drive for. The idea being that we know the Linux community already has a very good grasp of the desktop environment. What we need to be able to do is to provide an easy onboarding for people that are moving from Windows 10 or Windows 7, or from people who are saying, hey, do you know what? I just don't want to suck the Apple MacBook Kool-Aid anymore. I don't want to drink that anymore. I want to look at something else. How do we make that easy for those people? So I'm anticipating that there might be tweaks, but right now I don't see them being big changes at all.
Yeah, because I actually saw a first glance, and it actually looked like a really good environment, and one that I'd be willing to play around with. And I'm in agreement with you. The sidebar on the right hand side is a great move to start off with. But yeah, I just wondered if what the kind of target audience would be for this product. So definitely, I think if anybody at my workplace was going to be investing in that product, it would definitely be the web developers, for starters. And they're used to having a minimal desktop and with hardly anything on it at all. They just need to do their stuff, and I think that product certainly would suit their needs.
That's kind of what I was going to ask, is the price point range, or what is their target user? Because the price points that I've seen with it are more like an enterprise type or $2,000+ price points. Do they have a range of costs that they're going to be looking to be targeting, or different levels of users, or do you know anything like that?
So you're absolutely right about the price point, but the product is about bang for buck, right? So for $1,000 more, you can buy an Apple MacBook, which is only 75% as performant. So the idea that Mike and Mindshare were bringing to the table was saying, look, it's very easy to just wander into the low-cost PC market and try to be competing for the bottom side of the market. but that's not what the target is with the Kubuntu Focus. The idea is that is this creative intelligence, if you like. So videographers, video vloggers, web developers, or general developers, open source developers, potentially enterprise and educational customers, people working with machine learning and AI that need a really high performance machine that's really flexible and can operate in multiple environments, corporate, enterprise, independent, can operate in the gaming environment and provide really good support for Steam and things like that. So how do you do that in a product and then bring this broad portfolio of an offering to the table? And of course, it's going to cost money to do that, right? So, yes, it's a significant investment for people. But if you're looking at a high-end Dell machine with, Windows 10 on it, or if you're looking at an Apple MacBook, then actually the Kubuntu Focus is going to sit, or should sit, in your comparison portfolio as a potential offering that you should be considering.
Yep.
Okay, just a very quick question, and do forgive me, Richard, for asking you this. So ever since I was able to get out of nappies and diapers, the start button and the controls have been on the left-hand side since time immemorial. Yours looks incredibly odd because it's on the right-hand side. So all my muscle memory goes to the left. No. The bar's on the right, EB. Get a grip. What was the thinking behind being so radical and sticking it on the right as opposed to the left where everybody's natural muscle memory is?
Bob, that's a great question, right? And I'm a total pragmatist, just like you, right? So you can tell from my accent, I'm not too far away from where you are. So when I first received the machine, I just went like, "What? What are you doing?" Like initially, my response was like, "You're kidding me, right?" But I thought, right, Rick, have a little bit of patience, right? Just work with it and see what happens. So for about 3 days, it was awful. I was just thinking, I don't get this at all. And then this change took place where I just suddenly thought, oh, I like the idea of everything I am doing is on the left-hand side and everything I want to invoke is on the right-hand side. Somehow it just started to sit right with me. So I asked Mike exactly that question. I said to him, why did you do that? And he explained to me that he'd worked about 15 years ago with developing a enterprise resource planning application on Unix. And the software company that he'd worked with, they did a whole bunch of UX investigation, UX and UI design investigation with the people they were working with. And what they realized was that if you put the control menu on the right-hand side in their ERP client application and then had the main workspace on the left-hand side, that was the most intuitive to people because we all learned in the Western cultural world to read from left to right using books. So he really drove hard at doing that, despite almost everybody has protested and gone, but the start button should be on the left, at the bottom left. And he, as he rightly says, Mike rightly says, well, only if you grew up with Windows, it does.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely agree. No, I think it's fantastic. I had to ask the question because being different by design makes you stand out from the crowd. And to me, that can only be a good thing. However, the next time you see your Unix friend who worked in Unix all them years, just ask him if he also included write on a pipe and no one to read it, would you? Just for me.
Okay. Yeah, I will.
All right, you guys got any other questions? All right, I got one last question for you, Rick.
Okay.
This, obviously is, to me, a great thing to have this offering in that user target area where you said if you're looking for a high-end machine. But, I mean, you've seen many laptops before. What is the differential? What is the, bad word, what is the thing that grabs you the most about the Focus to say this is different from other laptops that I've tried?
Oh, Rocco, that's dead easy. it's got Kubuntu on it, and it's got a Kubuntu emblem stuck to the lid, and it's got a Kubuntu key, and I want 10 of them.
Oh yeah, but see, we were talking earlier about there being a standardized, or there's not a standardized Linux out there for people that you had mentioned the people switching from Windows or switching from Mac. And like I said, I think this offering is great because it just gives us another option for those people. Because when we talk about Linux, it can mean many different things to people. And, I think it would be a good thing for us to have some type of standard to say this is what Linux is. But yeah, I love the offering of the Kubuntu Focus.
Well, I think the answer, Rocco, and I've racked my brains on this for years. I mean, gosh, I've been utilizing and evangelizing about Windows, about Linux, sorry, and trying to fight against Windows for 20 years. And I've done quite a lot of work in that particular area. But I do think that the guys at Mindshare are onto something with this idea of workflows. So right now they're building out a portfolio of workflows for video, for photography, for gaming, for machine learning, and web development and general development. And the idea here is that anybody who's coming from a Mac or coming from Windows, for example, this is going to be an unfamiliar environment to them. And so there's a lot of undoing that needs to be done there, or a lot of new learning, and that's where people are resistive. So like a transition from a Mac to Windows, for example, people are really resistive. They don't want to move from Mac to Windows, and vice versa. They don't want to move from Windows to Mac. And I've seen loads of people throughout over the last 10 years, the number of times I've seen people where they've got hold of Ubuntu, they've installed it, and then they've started trying to download exe files from websites. And how do I install this? How do I get that working? Because they as a Windows user, they didn't understand the idea of there being some kind of Muon or Synaptic or Discover or Apt or some tool that would just take care of package management for you. The same kind of deal with people working on Mac as well. So the idea here is, how do you differentiate? Well, you differentiate by saying to people, giving them a workflow, right? So you want to do web development. You're going to need some tools to do that. You're going to need probably going to need some kind of web server. Well, you can use virtualization for that. You're probably going to want to use something like WebStorm or some tool like that. So JetBrains is there and available to you. And the idea is that you go to the Kubuntu Focus website, you look at the workflow, it says, click the JetBrains Toolbox, install WebStorm, click at this Docker container or whatever and spin yourself up a web server. And then here are all the tools you need, and off you go. So you can follow those simple instructions, and very quickly you're productive. And I think that is where the magic is. It's how do you make people who are migrating from other platforms to come over to our platform, to Linux, how do you make them productive? Because ultimately, that's what they're trying to achieve.
Yep. And I think also that the Kubuntu Focus is in the right offering, because it is those people who are in web development and power users that if they are looking to make the jump over, they're going to be looking for a higher end machine. They're not going to be looking at the base lowest model they can find because of the tools that they need. So I think the Kubuntu Focus fits that perfectly.
Yeah, I agree, and that was the idea.
Do forgive me, correct me if I'm completely wrong here, but isn't the whole coding, web developing, isn't that utterly dominated by Microsoft?
No, Bob, not at all. In fact,
please correct me, Richard. I'm just asking as an ignorant person. That's all.
No, certainly, most certainly, it's not. I mean, so there's a lot of interesting things going on with, I think, platforms like Azure and the shift to the cloud. But even in the shift to the cloud, Microsoft are massively behind the curve with that one. The dominant player in cloud is Amazon with AWS. The
Wow,
AWS
really?
Oh,
Really?
absolutely.
But
Yeah,
I thought,
miles ahead.
but I thought Azure Sphere, not Azure, but Azure Sphere was going to be the platform for the 21st century because it'll interlink with all your home appliances. It's almost platform independent. All the blue chips are signing up to Azure Sphere. So yes,
Well,
I'll agree that in terms of web hosting, Amazon are massive. Yes, I get that, no problem. But in terms of actual raw development, in terms of actually getting your coffee machine to talk to something out on the internet so it knows what coffee you like and automatically orders it. It knows when the machine's going to break down so a repairman comes to your door before it does. I thought Azure Sphere by Microsoft was the platform that all the big blue chips, your Panasonics, your Sonys, your JVCs, they're already signed up to that platform. Please
yeah, okay. So, right, we'll never discount Microsoft's capability to market, right? And so we're in a very different conversation from Kubuntu Focus now. But the landscape in cloud is dominated by AWS, followed by Google, followed by Azure, Microsoft Azure, and then several other vendors, right? Fast Hosts, DigitalOcean, Heroku, players like that in the market space. Amazon made an incredible early jump on the market when they introduced, like 15 years ago, I think it was now, they introduced S3 and some of the other tools, and they started building on that. And the really interesting thing about what AWS and Amazon is doing is that many of the things that they offer are actually wrapped open source tools and things like this that are given a nice name. And are productized, right, for their users. That gave them a really dominant position. So if you look at like the Gartner being like the global like lead analysts, if you like, of where people are and where the market sectors are, then AWS really do lead out there. Google have worked really hard to chase after them, and Azure came very late to the market. Most definitely they did. In
Okay,
fact,
Richard, there is a whole point to that comment. It's not just to be pedantic. The reason for that comment is this. I think you've got a fantastic opportunity. My youngest son, who's 23 years old, is a senior software developer for a very big supermarket here in the UK. You probably know them, Sainsbury's.
Yeah.
And 2 years ago, all I ever heard was to develop an app for Mac, you needed a MacBook, and to develop an app for anything else, it had to be Windows. The last 6 to 8 months have heard that many things out of him to the stage now where he's bought himself a Windows laptop and installed Ubuntu on it, which is absolutely amazing. And this big corporate, so this is kind of where I'm coming back round to. So your laptop could be perfect for somebody like my youngest son who does all this coding, app development. He uses, don't ask me what Kubernetes or Docker or Xamarin, I have no clue. I haven't the faintest clue. But he comes home and bombards me with it. And the gradual shift has been amazing away from Mac and Windows over to free and open source and hence Linux.
It's super exciting, isn't it?
Yeah,
it really
so that's that. I wasn't being awkward or facetious because I knew the roadmap in my head, which you guys didn't. But I think you've got the perfect time to do. Really, Rocco, we're going to do this. You're giggling. Really, we're going to do this right now?
So you had the roadmap. Nobody else had it.
I know. I'm sorry. Everybody's thinking, "Oh, where's he going with this?" Really?
And what do you expect from a guy that's got a purple-laced battleship in his warship thing?
I get super concerned when people start talking about roadmaps to me because the roadmaps seem to be these completely intangible things that speak about what's going to happen in the next 12 months and then change completely next week. But there we are.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that I think it's super exciting, Richard, great product, and I really hope it's successful for both you and obviously, more importantly for me personally, the Linux community, because I think it's fantastic too.
Well, yeah. So, do you know, EB, thank you for that. We really appreciate that. One of the things that we in Kubuntu wanted to do was, like, we'd been approached. This was an entrepreneurial group of people that wanted to put some money on the table to drive a product to market. And I just saw that as a fantastic opportunity for Kubuntu and the community to rally around that and really help them. And obviously my role in this is I'm a Kubuntu community manager and Kubuntu counselor, and I have been for about like sort of 5 years or so now, and I've been using Kubuntu for a long time, and I really love that distribution, and I'm really dedicated to it, and I'm very passionate about the guys that work so hard to make Kubuntu what it is. So of course, I'm going to really energize and grab hold of this opportunity with the guys from Mindshare. So I'm trying as hard as I possibly can to work with these guys, and the rest of the Kubuntu community have rallied really, really well around this. It's a very positive offering, and it's got the energy of the community behind it, and that I think makes a massive difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also touching the younger generations, Richard, which is super exciting for you. Whereas in the past, it was people from The Walking Dead who didn't need makeup like me who got passionate and excited about stuff. But now, when I see my 23-year-old come home and he's super excited because he's put Ubuntu on his laptop and he can code this, he can do that, he can do what. I think it bodes so well for you, my friend. So yeah, good luck.
Cheers, Bob.
Very nice. I am super excited because this gives us just one more option for people. And like I said before, you got that target base is something that we need. We need that offering out there like the Ubuntu Focus to get those web developers to say, hey, maybe I don't want to buy a Dell. Maybe I want to buy a Ubuntu Focus. Maybe I don't want to buy a Mac. Let me get the Ubuntu Focus. So I think it's awesome. Rick, do you have anything else you want to share with us about the Focus?
No, Rocco, I talk too much anyway, but what I would say is the only thing that I would appeal for is, listen, it's a community-driven thing. The more you guys speak about it, the more you talk about it, blog about it, write about it, share any content about it, the bigger its potential market could be. So this really is something that we have a great opportunity to get behind, and if you guys can help in any way doing that, then that'd be ace.
Well, I'm a huge Kubuntu user fan. I have been for many years. If somehow you are passing these around for review, and I'm being completely serious, like 100% serious. Like I don't ask for products from people. This is something that would actually be really interesting to me because I am a Kubuntu guy. If that's something you guys do at some point to try to get the word out there, I would definitely be interested in just seeing what it's about. So.
Okay, so look, you can look me up on ricktimmis.com. That's my website. You'll find my contact details on there. Or you can look me up on Telegram through Rocco. He's got my contact details. Obviously, these are not my machines, and it's not my investment. But what I can do, and I know that we did do this for Michael Tunnell, who spoke to me. I referred Michael to Mike, and Mike sent him a machine and got that reviewed. And then obviously, and he'll send it with a shipping label and it gets shipped back and this, that, and the other. I can certainly link up the communication channels for you because, at the end of the day, that would be great to just get some input on it and get some feedback.
I mean, his review was great, and that's exactly what I would want to do is to just publicize it by saying, here's hands-on with the machine and my experience with it. And so, yeah, okay, I'll reach out.
Yep, and Eric also has a YouTube channel, so he would definitely do a review videos on it. I can see that coming.
Yeah.
Don't forget to open your wallet, Eric.
No, I mean, I'll pay ship. I'm not saying I want someone to give me something. I'm just saying if we're publicizing it, I mean, I could talk about it, but it doesn't really do much good if I don't have something that I can actually show. So.
Just so you know, Richard, Rocco would also love one of those test machines, but I'm really sorry, buddy. You're going to have to put Pop OS on it, otherwise he's just not going to review it.
No,
Just saying.
Well, and if there was a way to break it, Rocco would find it. So
hey, I can find bugs, let me tell you. So just throwing it out there.
Can I just say one thing about this? So, Richard, thank you for coming on and thank you for the work in doing this. And one of the things that we sit here and we talk about Linux and we use Linux, a lot of this hardware, and not just to take away from Focus, but to add to it, all the companies that are making Linux specific hardware, think really seriously about not buying some cheap system and spend some money on products like the Focus, like with Pop, or I'm sorry, not Pop, System 76, Entroware, any of these companies that are small companies that are making this, they're putting a lot of money, they're working on thin margins. And to continue this growth, we need to buy some of these products.
Well,
So
Bill,
think about that.
Bill, to your point, when I bought this XPS that I have now, I actually tried to buy a Lenovo, and it was going to take 6 weeks to ship from China, I guess. And then I looked at, different options. Really, nothing had Linux on it pre-installed. I was just looking for mainstream options that I could run Linux on. Having these options, and I did look at System 76 as well, but the one I wanted wasn't in stock and had no ETA on when it would be available. So yeah, having these options is fantastic. I really, the next laptop I buy, and Nate and I have talked about this. I mean, if there is something out there, I've never had a system where I've opened the box, peeled off the plastic, turned it on, and had Linux running on it.
Yep.
That would be a really special experience, I think, for me.
But Bill, to your point, I think it's super important that we as a community get behind these companies that are offering these things, because, if nobody does, if we don't give that push, they may not be there. We all talk about community, we all talk about supporting Linux, and I think that if you have the available funds, if you're looking for, I'm not saying everybody should go out and buy a Ubuntu Focus, because obviously that's not possible. But what I'm saying is, if you're in the market for it, choose where you're putting your money, in an open source company or in a company that supports open source and Linux, rather than putting it in a company that is just going to take your money. Put your money where your mouth is, basically. Put your money where your support should be. And that's in companies like the people behind the Ubuntu Focus.
And that's, when I was asking about price point before too, the reason I was asking that is because there's been a lot of argument, we need that entry level $400 Linux laptop that'll get the masses using it. That's all fine and well. And I could see Dell doing something like that because of the size of the company. But when you're talking about a smaller organization like this, and it's a focused tool for, as you said, to go in between the XPS and maybe the MacBook or whatever and be able to do that type of work, that's a valid point. Now, if you were going to put a range of costs in something like that, maybe the entry level on the Ubuntu Focus would be maybe starting at $1,500 for somebody that doesn't need all that extra horsepower, but still could perform the photo editing and some of the, that type of task. I don't know. That's the bridges they'll have to cross when they see demand for this. Not everybody can afford a $2,400 laptop, so that's something I think that as the business model evolves, they'll have to decide on. So that doesn't mean you can't have a range where you're still in the higher end market, but yet you still have maybe a more basic entry level tool for somebody who doesn't, like I said, need necessarily all the video encoding and all that, because that takes a lot of horsepower. I understand that. If you're doing more, just you're a photographer and you're doing, your video production or maybe even music, that kind of thing. That's where, for me, I would say if they could have just a few tools available in the area. But again, they have to start somewhere, and I get that. And I think this is a fabulous option, because one of the complaints we hear about System 76, which if you want to call it a complaint, and it's nothing against that, I think they have a phenomenal product. But it's because there are people that don't like, and we've talked about this many, many times, the GNOME desktop. They don't, even though Pop! OS is a phenomenal distro, and also the price point that, because I think people are still looking for that entry level. So to me, let the big proprietary company who can play with those things and do that, maybe Dell puts out a little bit lower end or whoever, and leave the work tools to who does them the best. And I think that this is a excellent start, and I'm excited about it, because we've also talked about in our distro reviews how Ubuntu is more of a business type or enterprise type distro, I think, because there's so much that it can do. You know, it almost sometimes gets, and as we've said this too, where it can almost get confusing because it has so many different things you can do with it. But again, that comes back to the people using it and the workflow that they need it for. And I think it's a wonderful option. I think it's fabulous.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, hopefully the focus is resonating to those things, and I agree with everything you say. I mean, I think that there is, it's going to take some time, right? So for the price point to be broadened from that, like, from perhaps the sub $2,000 items. I know that's something that Mike and Mindshare and the team have been working on, and so hopefully, and the important thing here is that um, what I personally, so this is my personal viewpoint, what I really hope to see is a slow growth, because I know it's going to take time, but to see people moving from their old MacBooks or their old Windows PCs and saying it's time to upgrade. I'm working in this particular sector, so let's say I'm working in web development, and actually I've decided to not buy the next MacBook Pro for $3,500. I'm actually going to save a few pounds, and I'm going to buy myself a Kubuntu Focus. That's what I'm really hoping and praying for. Because that is the momentum that's needed to start moving the market and to start winning the market.
Well, Rick, Run with the Dolphin in chat is drooling over the Focus, but he asked about the battery life. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah. Okay. So it's not great, right? So I know that like the Focus team have worked hard and done a number of selective tests where they've got reasonably good battery life out of the machine, depending on their use case. So I think like if they were using it as a Netflix or a YouTube video playing machine and just playing videos for back to back for a long time, then they're getting reasonable performance out of it. For me, I love the shortcuts that the Focus gives. So I'm flipping between 4 different desktops and virtualization and all of these kinds of different things for my daily driver, because that's what I was asked to do. For me, I'm getting about 2 hours out of the battery, because I'm driving the machine quite hard. And I know Mike had provided me with some updates, which bought me about another 20 minutes. So it was initially like sort of 1 hour 40 or something like that, and I would have to plug the charger in again. And then the team did some software updates. I don't know what Mike and his team did, but they did some stuff that brought it out to about 2 hours. And I understand that there was some discussion the other day also about perhaps looking at an additional optional battery that's got like more milliamp hours or something in it. But I'm not privy to that at the moment. So my experience has been about 2 hours. My understanding from the product team, as they've been developing it, they've been able to get out to 4 hours. I've not been able to achieve that myself so far. So,
well, 4 hours is kind of, I guess, standard. But my question would be, how would it compare to, and maybe you don't even know this, but how would it compare to the higher end Dells, like the Dell XPSs with the high resolution screens and whatnot? How would it compare in battery life to those?
Depends on which model you have. So I opted for the smaller battery, the 56 watt hour battery, and I get 4 hours. So that's about what you expect.
Okay.
If you opt for, I think they had like an 80 something or maybe a 90. So you lose the option of a second disc if you do that, which is why I picked the smaller one. But I
Does
think
that also go by what you're doing with it as well?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, if I'm just using like Intel graphics and just browsing the web and doing stuff like that, that's when I get the full 4 hours. If I am, running virtual machines and I'm doing, recording or, anything that's processor intensive, yeah, it's going to eat battery way, way, way faster.
Okay.
But that's just how it goes. I mean, that's if you use your phone all day.
Right.
And the screen's on, you're going to use the battery more. So it's just, if you're using it to browse and to do light tasks, then yeah. And I think if I can get even 2 hours off battery, if I'm just somewhere doing something, that's usually good enough to get a task done. So I'm not, it depends on what your expectations are. I mean, you're getting in that system, the Kubuntu laptop. I mean, that isn't meant to be an ultralight portable,
No.
you know, all day
I tell-
battery.
but to be honest, who's really going to use a machine of that capability on a battery for any lengthy period of time? Who's
Yeah.
not near a main socket? You know, I
Well,
can't.
'cause,
You know, if you're
there's a-
going to go to if you're going to go to a meeting and it's an hour long, the laptop's going to whiz through it. You know, if you've got an hour and a half train journey, the laptop's going to whiz through it. You know, I can't think of that many occasions these days where, you know, you'd have to have 6 hours out your battery just on a battery.
Well, the other thing is too, if you are on battery, your processor is going to scale down. You know, it's not going to perform to the level that it will when it's plugged in. So if you are using it as a power machine, then you're going to want to have it plugged in anyway.
Right.
But see that there are use cases for that. My son's an example. He just bought a $4,000 MacBook Pro because that's what he uses it for in his business. It's got a 4K monitor or whatever, and he's forever running on battery. I just put a message out to him. I don't know if he'll answer. I'm curious to see what his battery life would be, and that's one of Apple's kind of claim to fame is that, you know, they can run longer for what they're pushing. But I think the way their hardware scales, like what you were just referencing, Eric, is a little bit different too, because again, the more horsepower you're pushing, the more battery life you're going to use. But there is use case for that, EV, to the fact that there are people that run them like that. I mean, he goes to a coffee shop all the time, and you don't always have the ability to plug in if they're busy or whatever. So it is quite frequent.
Fair enough, Joe. No, I was just posing the point. And don't forget, Joe, I'm old school. I'm not brand new, modern, younger generation. So I've got a completely different ethos to that generation. So yeah, I get that. But I was just trying to pose, I just wonder who in real life would drag a laptop around, for argument's sake, for an 8 or 10 hour working day purely on a battery. I can't. I mean,
yeah, that's probably the minority. I think
you get to the stage like with a BMW electric car where you buy it 3 years later, 1 day out of warranty, the battery goes, oh yeah, that's 20 grand for the battery. What? The car's worth 8 grand? Really?
Robin, you got a question? Anyway, I think Robin's question was, how big is the battery exactly in the Focus?
Oh, right. Okay. I don't know the answer to that, and I don't have it right here with me at the moment to be able to tell you that. But
I could answer that question for you. It's a sealed lead acid. It comes at £425, and it's got Kevlar carry straps on it. I just thought I'd drop that in there.
Yeah, no,
Now,
Bob,
you know what?
This is not like the mobile phone of the 1980s.
The old Motorola suitcases, like a suitcase on your shoulder.
But you know what? I just thought of something. To EB's point, the military used to put out, was it a Lenovo or ThinkPad type product? Which was the one that carried? It was like a tank. That thing weighed more.
Oh, the Panasonic Toughbook, Joe. Do you remember that? That was like,
you could drop those off a building. They could run for hours on the battery. So it makes you wonder what they were putting. But then again, you'd have a sore arm carrying it around for an hour because it weighed a ton.
Yeah, it depends on your interpretation of the word portable, Joe. You know, if
Exactly.
you built like Schwarzenegger, it's portable.
Yeah.
Well, guys, unfortunately, because I'm on my mobile phone connection, I kind of like I'm conscious of how much bandwidth I'm using for all this video talk backwards and backwards and forwards, etc. So unless there's any kind of other pressing questions that you really want me to answer, I'll kind of wander off. But it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me and allowing me to come and answer these questions for you and tell you a bit more about the Kubuntu Focus.
I really appreciate you being here, man.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you so much, Richard, and sincerely, if any of us can help, you know, promote it or whatever, please let us know. It'd be a pleasure, my friend.
The only other question I saw was screen size. If you could just say that real quick, and that would answer.
It says it's 16 point something, and I don't know exactly what it is, but it's 16 inches point something across.
Okay,
And
probably 16.4, 16.2. Okay.
Okay.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's good size.
Thank you, Rick. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. It's going to be a beast of a machine.
Yeah, it is. It's quite fantastic. I have to say, I've been using it for about 2 months.
The only other question that I have got is how heavy is it on your lap, to be honest, if I was going to use it on the train?
Oh, it's no big deal. I've used it several times on the train because I travel into London and back quite a lot. And I've never had any problem with batteries there because, of course, the trains in the UK have all got plug sockets, so you plug them in. So it's not a MacBook Air, right? And it's not a Dell XPS. Like what I'm talking to you on at the moment is this is my company because I work for Dell. I'm a software engineering manager for Dell, and so I'm on a Dell XPS at the moment, which is very light. It is more heavyweight than that, but having said that, this is 6 cores, 12 threads. When I want, like, one of my passions is developing software in Go, and which is compilation, pretty efficient anyway. But when you've got something that almost does that instantly because it can just execute on all of those cores, and you can run something up in Kdenlive, for example, and use 6 cores to do the rendering, makes a massive difference. So it's reasonably weighty machine. It's a sizable machine because it is a desktop replacement. That's the short story. So maybe think about the kind of weight that you would get with, say, a 15 or a 16-inch MacBook Pro. That kind of weight. It's comparative to that.
Very good.
Great. Thanks, Richard.
All right.
Okay, cool. Thanks very much. Thank you, Rocco. Thanks for the invite. I'll come back again at some point and chat to you all again. Have a great day.
All right.
You as well.
YouTube. Well, I don't know. What do you guys think?
That's very cool.
That is very cool. I'm sorry. That is very cool to have that part of that market where you would get a high. I know there's other high-end Linux machines out there, but to have another one there, it can't be anything but good.
And the specs of that laptop look really good.
Look,
I put the specs in the link in the both chats here, the one in Zoom and one in YouTube. And it definitely looks his high end. It's customizable. You can change the video card and things around. You can go from up to I think it's a 2080 in it. So it's
drool worthy, dude. It's drool worthy.
Yeah, it's good.
Although I do challenge it to run it as 3 screens. So let's see how it performs then.
Wow.
It's capable. It's got the hardware for it and the specs for it. It's capable.
It does come with USB-C too, so you could run display off USB-C. So
I love the fact that it's got ports on it. Put it that way.
Yeah, it's not like one of those MacBook Airs or whatever they have out there nowadays, where you can't even connect anything because it's all Bluetooth.
If somebody has any trouble taking it along to some conference or wherever, and they haven't got the right connector, they can't, whether it's HDMI or USB or whatever, that machine will have it all.
Yep.
EB, did you say what your son runs?
I've had loads of people come to conferences and they bring along their Macs, and I've got no adapters for them. Have you got HDMI?
He has 2 machines, Rocco. He has a MacBook Pro and he has a Dell XPS.
Got you.
That's why you need one of these. You put it right in the middle.
Yeah, I'd love him to get one, Joe. But I'm going to make him aware of it, because if you can get in at that sort of corporate level, then that's how the word starts getting, because they're the people at the sharp end that are using it day in, day out.
Yep. Well, that's what I was trying to say. It's not like all of us are going to run out and buy a Kubuntu Focus, but if we are in the market, or if we know somebody that's in the market, tell them about it, promote it, so that people know that there's other options out there. And it's not maybe going to be like, a new regular user switching over from Windows 7 because their Windows 7 is ending.
Right.
It may be those developers, those coders or whatever, that are looking for something like this. So we can do our part anyway.
Yeah, I think it's super exciting, especially for the younger generations, because that's how Linux is going to start getting commonplace rather than the realms of the nerd, if you like.
Yep.
My problem is why is this laptop so powerful? Because anyway, if especially if you're doing work on cloud, you don't need a powerful computer. You can do it basically on anything. And to be told, I'm somewhat hating myself for buying such a strong laptop that I have now, because it basically eats through anything, and I don't need such a powerful laptop.
No,
Right.
true, Big Pod. But then again, in my son's instance, where he's doing tons of coding in, as I say, Xamarin, C#, all sorts of stuff, why is he not using a Chromebook if it's all cloud available?
Right.
Just saying.
I think it's all
Well-
based on the user experience or
Mhm.
the user choice. You know, some people don't want to. If Big Pod doesn't need a big beefy machine, that's great. Some people prefer a big beefy machine.
It all depends what they're going to do outside. I mean, I don't know if this laptop that this person we're talking about here is using is just for corporate use, or is it a personal device as well? I mean, it's going to depend on what you're going to do outside of if it's a dual machine, it's going to, a lot of it's going to depend on what you're going to do outside of work as well. I mean,
Well, to be honest, Jason, with them specs, if you're a coder and the minute you lead work, you're on World of Warships, that machine's going to eat it, dude. Don't worry about that. It's going to absolutely.
well, that's what I'm saying.
kill
I mean,
it.
it all depends on what you need. Like Big Pod here is saying that, you know, for what he does, the laptop that he got was a little beefy. Well, it's probably because maybe he doesn't use that laptop for gaming or anything. But then there's people
I
that
get
will
on it,
do
but
everything.
Yep.
Okay, I
Video
just got
editing and
a
stuff.
Well, like
it's my
Richard
only
said,
machine that I don't use beside cloud. So
like Richard said, it's a
just got an
desktop
answer from my
replacement.
cloud.
Yep.
Yeah, I asked my son if he's consistently working on it, you know, on battery, what type of life does he get out of it? And he said, you know, probably 3 to 4 hours when he's running heavy programs consistently. He said, otherwise, probably 8 to 10 hours when he's just surfing an email, which is consistent with what we were just talking about.
Right.
And that's his
It'll-
MacBook Pro.
Yeah, battery life on a laptop is all going to be dependent on what you're using the device for. I mean, if you're just like surfing the web and not watching videos or something like that, the battery life will last for, you know, not forever, but a long, long time. I noticed that with, you know, my laptops. If I'm just pilly putzing around, it's fine. As soon as I put on a YouTube video or whatever, that battery starts going right
Yeah,
down.
he's a
I hate to
videographer,
ask this
so-
question, but does the operating system make a difference in the battery life?
Well, it wouldn't.
Yes.
Yes, it maybe the optimization that the operating system does on for like it's like CPU usage and when it's on opposed to battery opposed to you know, being on power. It depends on how it what's the word, it optimizes the usage. Like it was even saying here on the Focus website there how they when it's on power it is boosted, and when it is
MacBook Pro
not on
killer.
power, the boost is off.
EB
That type
is
of
showing off his love for Google.
MacBook Pro killer right here. 10 hours, Netflix,
really.
YouTube, light as a feather. And if you bust it, you can get a new one for £200. Sold. I'll have 4.
Bill, what were you going to say about the
Oh
power?
goodness.
Well, it obviously has power issues. I don't know, the numbers I'm going to give are a little bit don't quote them, but Wimpy talked about what Linux has, maybe 2 or 3 hooks into the power system, like an Intel base, where Windows has like 20 some hooks. So just on that, the battery optimization and power optimization, you know, we're running behind the curve and we're getting some really good performance. When you have companies that are System 76, I'm going to say, one of the things they're working on doing core boot stuff and getting access into a lot of the firmware. Once we have that access, you're going to see battery life increase significantly. So there is a difference. In Mac, obviously, Mac has control from start to finish with their battery, and you can see that in iOS systems versus even Android systems. So it's very important, but battery life today in Linux versus 10 years ago, it's completely different. And we keep moving that pendulum forward as we get more and more. And that's why it's so important to buy from these manufacturers. Because if you're just going to take your system with Windows, throw Linux on it, what does the manufacturer, what focus do they have of putting money into getting access into the hardware? If you're But if you're buying it from vendor that has Linux on it from the spot, there is much greater money going in to getting, maybe Intel will say, maybe there's more money here. Maybe it's just a little bit, but maybe we'll open that up.
Yep.
Maybe we'll open this up. So money talks in the real world. And
Agreed.
EB had a Chromebook. Chromebooks the battery life on a Chromebook is phenomenal. So, and there's a company that has, end-to-end control of that hardware.
Yep. Agreed. Put your money where your mouth is. That's all I'm saying. I'm very bad at that too. I'm telling you that, but I'm very bad at that. So I think we all can use improvement in that area.
Rocco, I'm really bad. I mean, I'm a ThinkPad person, and I have ancient ThinkPads. So I mean, I'm throwing stones when I shouldn't, because
Well, okay. So, and the reason I say it, and the reason I say I'm pretty bad at it, we're not all going to go buy a Kubuntu Focus, but maybe if you're in the market for a cheap laptop, go find somebody somewhere who offers that type of laptop in Linux.
Well, at this point in time, that's probably honestly going to be fairly hard to find a quote unquote cheap laptop in the Linux that's going to come straight with Linux, because like somebody said earlier, that since there's not a great demand for it, the price is not going to be lowered because of it's basically supply and demand.
Well, you may not have the same exact price. Okay, so if you're looking for a laptop for say $400 or $300 or whatever, you may not find it at $300. You may find it at $500, but maybe you buy the $500 laptop anyway because you're supporting Linux in some way.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to say.
And that's where the beauty of Linux comes in, though. Linux is very usable on older laptops and stuff. So that's where it's buying a brand new Linux machine for those that have been using Linux is kind of harder in the mindset, so to speak, to get into that mindset, because you can get like this computer behind me. This is a Lenovo IdeaPad that I got. I don't even know how old it is, but I got it. My mom sent it to me. So I got it for free, but it was, I just threw on Pop OS on there and it runs fine.
I have an old ThinkPad down there that doesn't run hardly anything, but it runs Ubuntu on it. So yes, there is a point to be made that you can get any hardware out there and you'll find a Linux distribution that'll run good on it, and maybe that steers you away from buying a Linux laptop in general. But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to urge people. Let's start supporting when you can, if you can. That's all I'm saying.
And that's the difference. People don't realize is if you're buying you buy a Windows laptop off the shelf, let's say you pay $350 for a Dell 1500 series or whatever it is, and you throw Linux on it. Problem is you've already paid into the Windows ecostructure. You're not really supporting Linux just because you're putting it on there after the fact. It's buying it out of the gate because it's sold that way. And unfortunately, right now, there is no $400 price point unless you're going into like Steve said, Chromebooks or something is the closest thing you're going to get to go into that price range. Otherwise, System 76, I think you could buy one in the 6-something range as their starter, for something like that if you want to get.
Well, that's a perfect example, Joe.
I've got to be honest, Joe. I'm really getting the itch to buy a Pinebook Pro.
Yep.
Yeah, me too.
Really fancy it. That, to me, that could be a Chromebook killer.
But you mentioned System 76, Joe. I bought this new machine and it wasn't from System 76, and maybe I would have paid, I don't know, $200-300 more for the System 76 machine than this one. But look at all the trouble I had with it. Look at all the headaches I had with it. Maybe I just should have bought a System 76 machine. In hindsight, I would. If I had to do it all over again, I would do it in a heartbeat. So.
Right, and the adage of saying Linux is only good for older machines, I think that's got to go away. Yes, it works on it, but quite frankly, it works on newer hardware, and I think it's getting better all the time because of the kernel is supporting the newer hardware now.
Not the latest bleeding edge stuff. It not out of the box. There are some updates you need to wait for. Maybe like for the new AMD stuff that comes out, you may wait a month or two for something specific. But for most general cases, yes,
Right.
You can run
Yeah,
Linux
it's
on
in
it and then on anything. All right, we are out of time. So it like flew by, and I appreciate you all being here. But everybody gets the last word. Tony?
Yeah. Thanks for doing the European edition, Rocco. It's fun, as always. It's different to the American one and at more sensible time for us Europeans. I'll probably still be here for the one later. And the distro challenge for next week is, oh no, sorry, that's not the show, is it? It's the next
Yeah, that's
show.
not how it works, Tony. Sorry.
No, okay. I just thought I'd try and get a head start, but it's not going to work.
We
I'll
have
wait till
our new thing we're going to do. We'll tell you about it when we get to the next biddle.
Oh, okay. I hope to see you all next time on the European edition. So take care, and for those that are here later, I hope to see you in a couple of hours.
All right, EB, last word. You are not talking, EB. You're either muted or something.
I'm not
EB?
muted, actually. I was just winding you up. But nevertheless, look, I mean, you all went for it, didn't you? Back of the net. So what I was going to say was, are you ready for this? Check it out. Google Chromebook, right? $150 with MX Linux on it. I'd buy that for $1. You're done, ain't you? You're done. Thanks very much, Rocco, for all your effort, my friend. Really enjoyed it. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Fantastic job. Cheers.
Bill, last word.
Thank you, Rocco, and thank you, Eric, again for all the stuff you do that no one sees. A couple weeks ago, Rocco had Carl Rochelle of System 76 on Linux Spotlight. We're talking about hardware vendors supporting Linux, making Linux. Give that a listen. A lot of good stuff in that show.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Jason, last word.
All right. I'll see you guys on the next show. And again, thank you for doing this segment in the show for all of us to get on here and be able to learn more about, the community, what's going on in the community of Linux.
Yep. Derek?
Oh, thank you again for another show. It's nice to be on the Europe Biddle. Check out my channel. I'm starting a YouTube channel. But again, it's nice to be in greatness of the great night of Chab Roundtable. Sir English Bob.
All right, I'm going to put a link in the chat for your channel, Derek.
Thank you so much, sir.
Last word.
Well, it was nice to be back. I haven't been here for a number of weeks. As you know, I'm still struggling with the hearing loss business, but at least I can hold a conversation because I was worried about how much I could really hear well and whatever. But I just felt the need to come, and at least today, this afternoon, was very convenient to come on here. I did miss being with you guys and hanging with you, and I love the conversation today. Hardware is always fun, and when you're talking anything pro Linux, it's fantastic. And I can't help but keep reflecting back from where we were to where we are and to where we're going. And I'm really excited about it. And that's what makes it a passion. And then, of course, the community that comes out of this and the people that are here. So thank you for having me back again today. And hopefully I'll see you tonight again.
Eric, last word.
Thanks for having the show, Rocco. It was a great discussion. I like having these guests. It's kind of interesting to have folks come on and want to discuss things and give us an opportunity to ask questions. I certainly appreciate that. So thanks for arranging that. And I will see everybody in a few hours. Take care.
All right, Phil, last word. First word, last word.
First, last word. Am I on? Okay.
Yep.
Well, it was nice to hear about the Focus, and we will have our laptops end of February ready for shipping and pre-ordering. So the first boxes and videos we already streamed on Twitter, and yeah, we will see how that will go. And having more hardware and pre-installed Linux is always good to see out there.
Yep. Agreed. You got to go check out the tweets about the box and about the Manjaro laptops that are coming out. You got to go check them out. Just saying. All right, Robin, last word.
Thanks, Rocco. Yeah, great as always, and appreciate this. And apologies for not being at last month's one. So belated Happy New Year to everyone there. Yeah, so looking forward to the next one on the 8th of March. Okay, it's the 8th of Feb today, isn't it? Yeah, it's the 8th of March. And remember, it's a leap year, so it's 29 days this month. Yeah, so first thing I'm going to do, well, first thing I have done during the show is move my KDE taskbar across to the right-hand side. So I'm going to give that a go for a little while. Secondly, probably I'll spend my Sunday whilst Storm Kira passes over us with 80-mile-an-hour winds. We're going to put Manjaro back on this box, I think, because I'm done with OpenSUSE. I've had enough today.
Wow, don't let Nate hear you say that.
Oh, he's on the next one, isn't he?
Yeah.
No,
He
I actually
may
did
be.
ask him a
I think he
question.
might be busy
No,
this week.
I've done a lot of Googling today, and no, I can't do it anymore.
Okay. Paul, last word.
Yeah, thanks, Rocco, for putting this on. I always enjoy watching it back, and it's even more fun to participate. And one last thing, just Sir English Bob, more like Sir Chabs a lot.
Love it, Paul. Love it.
Thanks for being here, Paul. Big Pod, last word.
Thanks for having this Europe edition again. It's a lot more sensible hour than I do in the morning. But sorry I was late today. Didn't even know it was Saturday. So that was fine enough. And might show up on the normal edition, but I'm not yet decided. We'll see how much awake I will be.
All right. Dig it. All right. Thank you all for being here. I want to thank Rick for being so nice to come on and talk about the Kubuntu Focus. That was absolutely excellent. I hope you guys, Eric, you mentioned it, but I hope everybody enjoyed something a little bit different where somebody comes on and talks about something that's going on in Linux. And I hope to do more of that in the future. Maybe not, maybe it'll only be a couple minutes. Maybe it'll be longer. But it would be, I think it's important to match the community with the people behind all of this stuff. That's my biggest goal. So I think it's something that I would like to put in further in future shows. So give me some feedback on it and let me know what you think. Later on on the regular Biddle show, Cassidy James is supposed to join us around the 9 o'clock hour to give us time to talk about Solus. And he's going to talk about the Elementary App Center and all the changes that they're making to it and the fund that they're working on. And they're over halfway there already, so that is absolutely awesome. Other than that, we'll see you in a few hours for the regular Biddle edition. Until next time, long live Linux.
Bye, everybody.
Solus.